Thank you everybody for being here, and thank you for allowing me to share some learning and thoughts with you. About 2 years ago, I was traveling to China to participate in a leadership program. I was really excited about returning to Shanghai 10 years after my first visit to the country, because a lot had happened since. So I wanted to experience these changes. I wanted to see what was going on. I was also excited about the group that I would be joining on this program. It was a mixture of business leaders, NGO activists, artists. And probably most of all, I was excited about the conversations we would be having, the exchange of experiences, of ideas, of perspectives. And so the days passed, and I experienced the new China, and I was awestruck. But on the inside, frustration was growing. And about midweek, I couldn't hold it in any longer. So I complained to the lady in charge, and I said, how can we be here in China with a group like ours and still be having all the wrong conversations? The business people only seemed interested in their next investment opportunity. And to them, China was a booming business opportunity, and they were rushing to get in. And to me, there was no deepening, there was no questioning about the profound changes that were going on in this country, about the uprooting from rural to urban, about the profound shifts in the values, the long-held values, towards materialistic, extrinsic values. And of course, the parallels of what was happening in China, albeit in record timings, with what was going on in our own countries. And not to mention the cost of the natural world of all of this economic progress, economic success going on. So the lady, in return for listening to me complain, she said, well, why don't you address the group? Why don't you speak to the group over dinner later this evening? And so I did. Before, I had to, knowing that darkness and negativity inspires no one, I had to summon myself to find a positive slant so I could deliver this message that I was so eager for the group to take in. And I spoke. Afterwards, I felt better. I'd spoken my truth, and that alone feels good. I don't know if the conversations were different or if they took a different slant the next morning. Maybe they did. But for the rest of the week, I kept mulling over, how do we, when people are not seeking to change, how do we nonetheless awaken them to what is so blatantly obvious? And then the transformation happened. When I least expected it, I woke up. In the ending circle, one of the investors said, at the start of the week, I screened the group. There were the business people and the tree huggers. And I thought to myself, I'll be spending the week with the business people. But as I sit here and the week is coming to an end, I realize that the most interesting conversations, the most rewarding exchanges for me have been with the tree huggers. And I've gotten to know the tree hugger inside of me. And the penny dropped. Compared to my, let's face it, in-your-face NGO approach of driving change, this was far more elegant. Let them come when they're ready. Provide the opportunities for individuals to have a direct personal experience that allows them to open up, to walk in someone else's shoes, then help them make sense of that experience, and above all, trust that love and the desire to positively contribute is within all of us. And as it was my turn in the circle, I spoke from deep inside when I said, I have realized that I will strangle the ideas that I care most about if I hold on them so tight, if I push on them so relentlessly. I had learned that I needed to hold lightly the things that I care most about. I had learned that in order to become more influential in driving change, I needed to learn to let go. And I was grateful to Leaders Quest, the organizers, for this important learning. And later, as I traveled home, I was thinking about persuasion. And I thought of myself a few years earlier when I had first joined WWF. I was reading endless reports about the state of the world, and it was terrifying. I was convinced this was a problem of awareness. If people knew, people would act. So for the coming months, I would shift every conversation to one of fact-sharing. In retrospect, it's a miracle friends and family kept wanting to see me. Because as you know, it's not a question of awareness. It's a question of denial, of rejection, of helplessness, of not knowing where to begin and how to make a difference. Far more complex. So my persuasive efforts, they fell on deaf ears. It didn't work. Persuasion rarely, if ever, does. It is merely words until you experience it yourself. Direct personal experience seems to be at the heart of any change. So I got that, and I got the need to let go. But what wasn't clear to me was, how do you do it? When we care so deeply about the state of our world, how do we hold lightly? When we care so deeply about the smog in the air, the plastic in our oceans, the raping of our earth, the clearing of our forest, and when we reject the violence, the hatred, and wish for justice and freedom for all, how do we learn to let go? How is letting go different from giving up? And are there sometimes things we should hold on to? And if so, what? Big questions. And to make some sense of this, I decided to begin with understanding what isn't letting go. And at the opposite end of letting go, we have attachment. And in our culture, we tend to connect attachment with ownership. We want to own things, we want to possess. This thing belongs to me. Be it my car, my child, my lover. And it seems we need to learn to value things, beauty, nature, or people for what and who they truly are, for their true self, not for what they bring to me or what I can get out of it. And the problem with attachment is that it always leads to sorrow and sadness when we lose it, which we inevitably will, because no condition of existence ever lasts forever. And as the Buddha says, as the Buddha teaches, we can only lose that which we cling to. Letting go is not caring. And it seemed that I had mistakenly connected holding tight with loving deeply. Letting go is not passive. It's not saying it's all good or whatever. Letting go isn't lazy. And letting go isn't giving up. It isn't the easy way, and it isn't always fun. So letting go is non-attachment. That's very different from cold indifference or from detachment. Letting go takes practice. Letting go is what enables life, energy, love, learning to flow freely. Letting go is probably the most courageous thing we can do, because it forces us to face our fears and to let them go. And it's probably by far the most powerful skill we can cultivate in our lives. Some months after returning from China, I gave birth to Louis. I love motherhood. Parenthood, and in particular shared parenthood, on the other side was a little bit trickier. It turned out that me and my husband had very different views on how to best care for our child. And this created a real separation between us, and mountains of hurts and sorrow and sadness. And then one night, early evening, this fall, early fall in fact, we sat down and we started to say all of those things that are so incredibly difficult to put words on, and that are even more difficult to hear. One said, "I don't feel joy when I'm with you anymore." The other one said, "I don't feel love, not for you, not from you." We had created a wall between us, a wall made up of the hurt times in the past. It was monumentally difficult, and the tears were flowing. But somehow, by naming it, by speaking the truth in our hearts, we were able to begin to let go and start unpacking the heavy rocks in our relationship backpack. And in so doing, we were able to truly begin to enjoy being on this journey together. And I share this with you because who we are in our relationships at home is how we show up at work. And if we're not able to let go in our personal lives, we stand no chance of doing it in our organizations. So for us, it was about letting go of hurt times. For me personally, it has a lot to do with letting go of control. For you, it may be something else. It may be about letting go of complaining, letting go of comparing yourself to someone else, letting go of ideals, letting go of disappointments of ourselves, of oneself. It might simply be about letting go of clinging, of attachment. Or it might be letting go of letting go. Finding out for you what letting go means to you is time well spent. And then back to the question about, is there anything that we should hold on to? And if so, what? Well, a wise person would say, yes, there is. The first principles. Things like goodness, truth, beauty, love, unity. These are the things to hold on to, because they don't change, though our individual understanding of them might. And I would like to add, not to let go of effort, not to let go of perseverance, not to let go of target, ambition, and vision, but to learn to do this in a way that isn't clinging, that isn't attached to the outcome, but with an open heart and an open mind as to what might come. And when it comes to being a change maker, well, if I am attached to the ideas that I want to get across, I end up putting people off. So instead, after my job is to help them find out their way of seeing the world, help draw out of them what they already know. The true meaning of education, I'm told, is to lead out, not to put back into. So to lead out. And when it comes to me, well, if I am filled up with hard-held beliefs, there is no space for me to learn and grow. No space for new ideas and insights to flow. So as we learn to let go, we stop pushing, we stop clinging, we're free to live what's in our hearts. And we can be that shining example as we live it, walk it, and talk it. We lead from our center, and we show there are other ways. And in so doing, we embody the message we seek to get across. And that is how we teach. That's how we inspire, and that's how we create change. And when I struggle to hold lightly, when I pass judgment, when I get upset, my friend tells me this: everything is unfolding as it should. We cannot see its perfection because we're not seeing it from an internal or infinite standpoint. But rest assured, nothing is out of place. Each individual are where they need to be. Judgment only serves to upset you. Let go of the attachment to the idea that the world should be perfect. Accept that you don't know where it's all going and you're not in control. Trust in the process. Trust that it is beautiful. So I leave you with that. Have a great 2 days.
Yeah?